Let's do this, people. We are ready for episode 35 of our 2D podcast about the National Football League as we break it all down in every direction possible. With us, as always, Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network, NFL.com. That's where you can check out his fantastic work. Eric Eager coming to us, I think, straight out of the offices of the Pro Football Focus headquarters, pff.com, where you can catch Eric's great work. My name is Soren Petro from Sports Radio 10WHB in Kansas City, 810WHB.com, where you can catch my radio show. Gentlemen, these are some of my favorites. I love doing this kind of stuff. I love, rankings because I love to see how they change, right? That's one of the things. I like to put my name next to it, say this is what I'm thinking, and 3 years later be like, good God, what was I thinking? Right? Like there's some of those, and some of them will be like, God, I nailed it about that guy. He sucked, or that guy was great. This is one of my absolute favorites. I loved our Red, Gold, and Bold podcast where we did comps on all the draft picks. I love ranking coaches even more than I love the comps. Jeff, let's do this. Let's at least kind of explain how we went about putting together our tiers. We'll begin with you, Jeff Chadiha. How did your tiers come about?
Well, this is one of those exercises where I'm probably going to be a lot more optimistic and positive than you guys might be. My tiers were broken down more into, I think, different criteria. The first one, the top tier is just you're going to the Hall of Fame. There's no doubt about it. You are like a clear-cut elite coach. You've accomplished enough. You are going to get a gold jacket out of it at some point. Tier 2 is more guys who I think will win Super Bowls at some point or who have won Super Bowls. Really impressive resumes. Tier 3, there are guys who've done some impressive things but need to show me more. Tier 4 are the second chance group. So you can figure out who that would be. Guys who are second go around. Didn't do that much in the first jobs, but have some good things going from them going in the second opportunity. Tier 5 is promising, but really not having done all that much. And then tier 6 are the first tier guys, and their tier 7 is you're about done. You're cooked. That's it.
Tier 7 is you're pretty much cooked. Like
go chicken go.
Okay. Eric, how do yours line up?
Yeah, I have a similar one. I actually have a Hall of Fame class. That's about 4 coaches deep. I have a tier 2, which are guys that, if they stay on this same path, they're going to win Super Bowls. And some of them already have. And you're probably going to make the Hall of Fame. But all of them are, sort of younger guys, except for one. And then I have a tier 3 of younger-ish, early career coaches, all of whom have had success, but I wouldn't say are tactically brilliant. And then I have one of retreads, guys who I think have had success before, lost jobs after that, and come back with some questions or even in their second stint have elicited questions. Then I have another tier of guys who are probably too early to tell. Too early to tell, right? Have coached a year or two, or are just simply entering the league again. And I'll reserve judgment on it. And then I have a tier of guys that I think stink.
And guys who stink. I think I like how that is. All right. I'm going to go with so I do this on a lot of different things on my radio show where it's, and by the way, I love this already. Irish Max says, Tier 7 equals the Urban Meyer Club. Well done. Which, by the way, if the Chargers, and I know, Eric, you and George were talking about this, if the Chargers anime account can take a shot across the Jaguars' bow with an Urban Meyer, Jaguar on the schedule release, then I think we can handle Irish Max. Urban Meyer statement. By the way, if you're catching us via the podcast, we do stream live Thursdays at 9 Central is when we stream live, and you can get your comments in there on Twitch, Facebook, and YouTube. That's how Irish Mac was reaching out to us, and of course, so we always appreciate that. And by the way, hit that like button, that love button. It don't cost you nothing, but it helps us out a lot. We'd appreciate it. Retweet, send the word out about the podcast. Would be greatly appreciated by Jeff, Eric, and myself. Likes, loves, good comments, We love them. Thank you very much for listening. I've got 6 tiers. Tier 1, I guess I would call it would probably fit that Hall of Fame. I don't know that Sean McVay, sleeper, or peek under the covers is in tier 1. I don't know that he's punched his ticket for the Hall of Fame yet, but I think he'll probably end up there. But I kind of do mind looking like this is what I think they are now. Not a career achievement award, but what they are now. So I've got a tier 1. That's what that is. Tier 2 are guys that I think are on the come. They could be in this next group. They haven't quite achieved enough for me to know that they can be championship pedigree. Tier 3 are guys that maybe have been there and done that, but aren't going to do it again, in my opinion. But, I can't knock them. They're at least going to run a functional season for you if they were your head coach. Tier 4 is there might be some possibilities there. I'm probably not seeing it. You're kind of in a prospect. You're a prospect group, but I'm not betting on you yet. Tier 5 is doubtful, and tier 6 is you need to be looking for a new coach. All right, that's what I've got for my 6 tiers.
So you're going to evaluate the first year guys then?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Let's go. Let's dance. I can already tell you. What's going to happen. I will wear it 100%. Let's do it. My favorite part of it, Jeff. You want to start at the top or the bottom? Where you want to go?
I will start. Well, that's a good question. I'll start at the top.
We didn't think about doing it. Which way we're going to do it. So.
I'll start at the top because as we get deeper into this, we're probably going to have a lot more debating about who should be where. So my tier 1, my Hall of Fame gold jacket group, no question about it. I'm going Bill Belichick. I'm going Andy Reid. Sean McVay is in that list. I'm going John Harbaugh. I'm going Mike Tomlin. That's my top 5. I think of that group, all those guys have won championships. They've all distinguished themselves. They've all had to deal with difficult coaching situations and been able to rise above it. Sean McVay, people may question that because he's a young guy, but he's already won 1 championship, played in another. The Rams went 11-5 in his first year. He's had to deal with a lot of big personalities. He's had to deal with a very unique way of building a roster. So I think that speaks to his ability to coach up stars and Jags. And I think he's going to win another championship. I think he's going to end up having one of the most successful coaching careers of all time.
Because I think it'll be the most boring follow-up. I'll go next because I'll say ditto. Right? I have the exact same 5 guys in my top tier. I think it would be possible to be bold and grab some other names, but I do think there's a little bit of you got to be there and do that. And these guys have been there and done that, and they've done it again, right? Sean McVay hasn't won multiple championships. Neither is Andy Reid or John Harbaugh. Only Belichick and Tomlin have won multiple, right? But Tomlin's got 2, doesn't he?
He's got 1.
No, he's 1.
He's won.
Yeah, him and McVay are the same as 2 appearances, 1 win. Andy Reid's got 3 appearances, 1 win. But I mean, these are guys that if you hire them, you're in and got a chance to win a championship. They've done it. They've been up there close enough. I mean, Harbaugh, to me, what Harbaugh's done without the Hall of Fame quarterback and getting a championship without a Hall of Fame quarterback is just giant. And he just has playoff year after playoff year after playoff year. We're going to learn a little bit more about Tomlin post Ben Roethlisberger, but I think his last 2 years have been absolutely fantastic coaching jobs by him with what's left of Ben Roethlisberger. To me, if I were going to be scandalous at all in this, it's that I thought long and hard about bumping Belichick down to number 2. Again, my view, listen, not as a career achievement award. He's first tier, all time, every list, if we're talking about what his career achievement is. But if we look at where he is now and going forward, he still seems to be wanting to be hands-on in the draft, and I don't think the draft is that good. They got into the playoffs, but, we're a whimper in the postseason. I'm not convinced that Bill Belichick post-Tom Brady is going to be much more than what Chuck Noll was post-Terry Bradshaw, right? I need to see it. I gave thought to dropping Bill Belichick to the 2nd tier, but getting in the playoffs last year with a rookie quarterback, that solidified. Nope, he's still got some fastball to him, so I kept him in the top tier. Eric?
So does that stop you from being a good coach if you stop having great players? If you prove
I think it makes you question what the all the results were in the past, right? Like I think we all give Belichick. I think we look past his Cleveland years. We look past the 2008 year when the league was kind of weak and he was able not to make the playoff. They went 11-5, but you know what I'm saying? Like I think Belichick. I put Belichick in this group, so I'm gonna jump in. My top four are Belichick, Reed, Harbaugh, Tomlin, only because I think they've all cemented Hall of Fame busts.
So yours a career achievement award.
I mean, I don't know. Like I look at
McVay is not their equal right now in your mind.
I think McVay is a very flawed head coach in a lot of ways.
Oh,
I also believe
you tell Jared Goff in a Super Bowl and then a championship with a first-year quarterback that everybody, at least me, had decided was a freaking loser. Arm talent and loser, and he took Matt Stafford and turned him into a guy who's now pitching phones on TV. I mean,
no, I know. I'm just saying, Andy Reid is deserving right now. Mike Tomlin took that horrible Steelers team to 9-7-1 in the playoffs, right? I think Harbaugh's the best coach in the league right now. I think Harbaugh's the best coach in the league right now. My issue with McVay is you have the fourth down decisions, which are issues with Belichick as well. You also have a front office that pushes the chips into the middle and gets you talent at every single turn. And so I look, my second group, can I go to second group?
Yeah, you can leave it.
I had these 8 in the first tier, and then I decided to be whatever about it, right? I decided to break it into younger guys that I think are on their way to the Hall of Fame. And so, like, again, there is some lifetime achievement to this, but honest to goodness, Belichick did a lot with a crappy roster last year. Let's be honest, right?
Oh, he's no brain. I mean, Soren's got the action.
Tier 2 for me is LaFleur. Tier 2 for me is LaFleur, McDermott, McVay, Shanahan.
Wait, give it to me again slower.
LaFleur, McDermott, McVay, Shanahan.
And no Mike Vrabel.
No Mike Vrabel yet.
Wow.
So what are those guys done that Mike Vrabel hasn't done?
McVay's won a Super Bowl. McDermott's taken a team. McDermott's won Vrabel's won playoff games. That's a good point. McDermott built the thing from nothing to where it is now. And Shanahan's taken a team to the Super Bowl. LaFleur's 3 straight years of 13 wins the regular season.
I stepped on whatever Jeff said before. I'm sorry. I apologize for that. But I don't know. Mike Tannehill was given up on by the freaking Dolphins. And now he gets credit for like being a stud or something. Like he has taken a guy that the Dolphins said, no, not good enough.
What was Derrick Henry doing before he showed up?
Agreed. Listen, I'm on the
Derrick Henry, like that team went to Arrowhead and
him
the playoffs before Vrabel got there.
It beat Alex Smith in the playoffs.
Alex Smith was a 2-time AFC West champion quarterback that they went in and beat.
See, and that's where I'll object. I think taking over, and they were what, an 8-8 or 9-7 team that got in as and then handled Alex Smith and Andy Reid definitely, and promptly fired their coach. Let's remember that wasn't Vrabel. They fired the coach. I actually think taking over a team like that is harder than taking over a turd. There are no expectations with a turd. You get a flush, anything and everything you want. Mike Vrabel took over with immediate expectations that he's supposed to take a team and make it better, and he did. He took a team that had a franchise quarterback, and he turned his back on it, walked away, not to the Belichick point of walking on $100 million, the first $100 million quarterback in Drew Bledsoe and giving it to a 6th-round pick. But he walked on Marcus Mariota, who was supposed to be the guy, and gave it to Tannehill. The Dolphins gave up on. His moves have been bold. The success has been there, but I mean, I don't think the only difference between him and John Harbaugh is opportunities, because Harbaugh's playoff runs are pretty good, but if you take out the one Joe Flacco gets hot, like if they pick the ball, what was the safety had his hands on it, they picked that ball, and John Harbaugh is the guy who can't win the big game.
Yep. Oh, and by the way, every coach in the tier 1, Mike Vrabel is beaten. Whether in the playoffs or in the regular season, handily. I mean, he's a gamer. Go
with your tier 2. Go for your tier 2, Jeff.
I actually had LaFleur, McDermott, Vrabel, and Kyle Shanahan. Pete Carroll's in tier 2 for me still. I know people want to kill him for what's happened in the Seahawks over the last couple years, but won a championship, had a chance to win 2, as close as you can get to winning 2. What was it, 8 straight winning season with Russell Wilson there as his starting quarterback. Rebuilt that team from nothing. People forget that now. I think that if he had not had the year he had last year, he would easily be skirting with being in tier 1. I just think he's fallen off a cliff a little bit, but people act like he can't come back. He's stopped being a good coach because he's made some bad personnel moves.
Did you, Eric, want to rebut something from before? Did we cut you short?
No. I mean, I think I was going to say my tier 3 is pretty good. Like, I think the coaches in my tier 3 are good. I don't think having them in my tier 3 means I think they suck. The Carroll one is one that Jeff and I are going to disagree on because I don't think Carroll's any good. But
okay, so I want to this is my frustration, and everybody has frustrations with everybody else's rankings, right? So, respectfully, my respectful frustration is McDermott gets credit because analytically he grades well, right? But he hasn't won squat,
no,
right? And you put like, what has he won in the postseason?
They won 2 playoff games in 2020. They killed Belichick last year in the playoffs.
But has he been?
So they can't beat Kansas City in the playoffs. I'm sorry, but the Chiefs have the best quarterback in the league, so it's going to be hard.
Okay, well, so but then Pete Carroll gets no credit for having, taken the team to the mountaintop, right? Which I'm fine with because I have Pete Carroll in tier 3, right? So I'm okay with that as long as that's your consistent theme. Like, my theme is about where they're going here forward, right? Like, that's what I'm interested in, right? I'm not ranking them off their career because Pete Carroll's going to be in the Hall of Fame probably. We agree or disagree?
I agree with that.
Okay.
I mean, I guess like that's part of like maybe the issue with consistency for me is just like this is partially a list of guys that I would want and partially so like if I were hiring any of these 32 guys, Carroll would almost be the last guy I'd hire.
Yeah, but I mean, we said it's your list. Do it however you want. So how can you be frustrated with your decisions?
I'm not frustrated with it. I'm just saying that like my disagreement on Carroll is I think like what Carroll has done in the past is less predictive of what he might do in the future than some of the other guys who I think have similarly good pasts.
I'm also surprised on Vrabel because my second tier is Zach Taylor of the Bengals, Sean McDermott of the Bills, Matt LaFleur of the Packers, and Mike Vrabel of the Tennessee Titans. Because I know, and one of the reasons why Vrabel is easily in tier 2 for me is because I agreed with, and I remember seeing or listening to, PFF podcasts and talking with PFF guys like yourself, that there was not much expectations for the Titans last year. Right. And yet they ended up being the number 1 seed in the AFC. Like I like Vrabel, and then he exceeded even my expectations. So that's why he goes in the second. I do have McDermott in the second, even though I'm ripping, how much he's being loved. But I'm going to tell you, I'm betting on the come. I'm betting that you're right. He's run into the Chiefs on the wrong times, and he's going to finally, get past that. But I do think this is a big year for Sean McDermott.
Yeah.
Right. Like they're and it's not easy having the bullseye on your back, and they've got it on their back right now. And they've got all the pieces. They've got the quarterback. They went out and grabbed the pass rusher, although I think that's way too much money for a guy that old in Von Miller.
They're all in this year.
They are. And so can he deliver on an all-in year? Like if I were him, I'd have been like, no, don't do this. Let's keep playing the long game. And we'll get there eventually. We have the quarterback. It's fine. But this puts a lot of pressure on him. And so I think that's tough. I like LaFleur and the Packers, even though they haven't gotten over. I would listen to LaFleur being third tier because, he spit the bit ultimately in the biggest games, hadn't he? Right? Or do we say Aaron Rodgers is a cancer?
I think Aaron Rodgers is much more difficult to deal with than he's led on. And so I kind of think LaFleur has it going on a little bit at the coach.
I give him more credit for managing Aaron Rodgers, given what happened this past offseason, what he had to deal with coming in, knowing his reputation with Mike McCarthy, that to be able to do that as adeptly as he's done it and still get that team to a championship game 3 straight years in a row, whatever, it's 39 wins over 3 years, regular season. Hats off to that. I don't think anybody in my tier 3 is close to what LaFleur has done as far as that part of it. I mean, some of the guys in tier 3 have won championships, but yeah, I thought you were going to jump all over Kyle Shanahan being in my tier 2, Soren.
I mean, as you heard, he's not in my tier 2. So I was gonna. I can fire that right now if you want. He is in my tier 3, but I'm gonna get my tier 2: Zach Taylor, Sean McDermott, Matt LaFleur, Mike Vrabel. And I know Kyle Shanahan has the Super Bowl appearance, but he's totally boom or bust on a season. He's only got 2 playoff years, and I'm not convinced. Like, do you think this is a playoff season?
Could be. I don't think last year was a playoff season. I have more questions with Zach Taylor being in tier 2 than I do that. I mean, I just think it's too early to have Zach Taylor be that high on the list.
I don't think there's any reason for Kyle Shanahan to be rated ahead of Zach Taylor. None. He has accomplished no more.
2 words for you: Jimmy Garoppolo.
2 words for you: like a quarterback with 22 starts and he's in the Super Bowl. Or whatever it was, 27 starts. I can't remember how many he had the first year. And then he started last year, and then he's got him in the Super Bowl. By the way, kind of banged up too when he had him in there. And a team that was like, I mean, the 49ers were they and then immediately did nothing. And here's what I don't like about Kyle Shanahan. Garoppolo was his handpicked guy, didn't work. Then we hear nothing but quarterback rumors around him. Now he can't, extricate himself from Jimmy Garoppolo. There's nothing but rumors, people saying, well, no, he really wanted this guy and that guy. Like, there isn't even a consistent message coming out of there. Like, I think it could, and Deebo Samuel's trying to shoot his way out of town. Like, that's not, how are we looking at the 49ers going, model franchise, it's all firing. Again, I have him at 3, I don't have him at 6. So if it sounds like I'm destroying him, I'm not. I've a number of people I know in the league that talk about him being a play calling genius, and that's great. But there's also the management part of coaching, right? Like I do like a lot of the things he does. I think he coordinates a really good run game, but I also think there's a little bit of his dad. Let me prove to you that I can rush for 1,000 yards with anybody. Let me, like, I don't know that it's all about winning. I think sometimes it's about like trying to be the smartest kid in the room all the time. And that's not necessarily what gets you to winning.
Well, I think Bill Belichick and Andy Reid can be accused of being that too. And have been and have had multiple clashes with players throughout their career. I don't see him for Deebo Samuel. What's that?
What about the quarterback position? Do they ever have a sketch quarterback set up? Like you don't know who it is, and the guys, picking the wrong.
More Shanahan, or is that John Lynch? Or a combination.
Okay. All right. Well, let's go tier 3. Everyone's done tier 2, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so tier 3. Eric, you want the honors on this one?
Sure. These are guys that I think are good, or very good coaches. And for various reasons, I haven't put them up there yet. Frank Reich, Kevin Stefanski, and this isn't in order. This is a group. Frank Reich, Kevin Stefanski, Mike Vrabel, Zach Taylor, Brandon Staley, and Dan Campbell.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
It's like the stock market.
Say it again. Say it a little slower and say it with the team so people can digest.
So Frank Reich, Colts, Kevin Stefanski, Browns, Mike Vrabel, Titans, Dan Campbell, Detroit.
I don't know.
Brandon Staley, Chargers, Zach Taylor, Bengals.
All right. 2 of them. Like, I don't think Stefanski has proved it. I think that, and I get it, it's a screw house organization, but I don't think he's proved enough to be at that level. And I think you've lost your mind on Dan Campbell. I don't know how Dan Campbell, please justify Dan Campbell being in the 3rd tier.
That team was one of the least talented teams I've ever seen last year. They were 11-6 against the spread. They played extremely hard, and they were just a team like every single. I mean, look, I was on the show every Thursday saying, "Hey, like Detroit's going to play hard this week. They cover against the Steelers. They tie the game. They're going to beat Minnesota this week." They kicked the hell out of an Arizona team that was supposed to be in playoff contention. I think they play hard. And that to me is like a little bit of, whenever anybody's like, oh, the gimmicky stuff, like no one buys into the gimmicky stuff. People bought into the Dan Campbell stuff last year.
I am stunned because I thought I was doing a solid for Dan Campbell that he's not in my 6th tier. And I was like, they did play hard. You know what that got him? Got him 5th tier on my board. Like they played hard. Like it's and by the way, and maybe you guys are victims of the fact that I'm fans of your work, and so I pay attention to what all. But weren't you going into last year super down on the Eagles' talent?
Myself? Yeah, of course I was.
Okay, but so how come Nick Sirianni isn't here? Nick Sirianni had a team that going into the year you thought was not talented, and he went to the playoffs.
Are you reading my list, Soren?
I'm making a the Dan Campbell thing is in there because I'm making a predictive statement about this year. I think Detroit's going to be good.
Okay, and I think that's I like that. That because I do think there is a chance that I'm not totally wrong because I don't have him in my bottom tier, but that wacky guy, it clicks with people and they run through a wall for him. But I do worry that he doesn't have the quarterback and he's not going to scheme his way past it. I think he's a little bit of a rah guy and let's go get it done. But the Campbell one, I mean,
look, if you look at, I know we talked about this, but like Taylor Decker, Frank Ragnow, Penei Sewell, TJ Hawkinson, Jamison Williams, Jared Goff, that's a lot of first round picks playing for that team, that offense. And the defense, you have Okudah, Hutchinson, Awawarrior, you have DJ Chark, you have Araman St. Brown, a guy that developed really well last year. Josh Reynolds, a guy the Chiefs wanted, who played very well down the stretch for that team. This is me sticking my neck out and saying that Detroit is going to be good this year. Like I'm not saying that they're winning, that they're winning fake trophies. I think that they're going to make the playoffs, and I think that they're on their way to being a good franchise.
Man, I think making proclamations.
Dude, I love it. I mean, I was bullish on the Bengals, and it ended up paying off. I mean, I do love your. I know you're going to be down on the Lions big time on the betting side of things, and on the over. And listen, I think it's one of the best things we've had on this list so far because you're putting your stones on the table and saying, "Here it is, man. Here it is."
And I know I've been with PFF in full time for three orgs now, right? The Caldwell, the Patricia, and now the Dan Campbell. Like I've seen the inner workings of the Detroit Lions. I have friends who work there. I have a friend that intern there. Like I think like this is famous last words, but I think the franchise is moving in a decent direction. And I think Dan Campbell's going to be a recipient, but also a reason why. Again, last year they were horrid. Right. And there were tons of teams in the league last year. There were bad teams in the league, and they all went in the fetal position, and the Lions got better every single week.
Okay. Jeff, you want next up?
I actually had Dan Campbell in my tier 3 until Eric said it out loud, and I was just like crossing it off. Like, I cannot do this. There's no way I can actually back this up. It sounded better when I was on my patio writing a list out. Like, oh yeah, this Dan Campbell. It's like the Lions, they got better. It's just like hearing it out loud.
It's hard to say out loud, but
you dropped like 2 tears as soon as you said his name. I was just like, no.
Okay.
So
your tier 3?
Yeah, my tier 3 is, and here I give a lot of credit to guys who actually have either coached the Super Bowl or won one, because I feel like we're giving those guys we're giving those guys a little bit of a bad look here. But Frank Reich is in my tier 3. Okay. Zach Taylor is in my tier 3. He's not in my tier 2 just because I think he needs another year of doing what he did. Like if he had done that if he had been where Matt LaFleur is with a Super Bowl, definitely be in there. Nick Sirianni is in that list. I'm high on him. I think the Eagles were a mess when he showed up there. I had no hope for him turning that around. I had no belief in a receivers coach or a quarterback, whatever he was, and with the Colts showing up and doing what he did. Granted, 9-8 wasn't phenomenal, but changing the offense the way he did with Jalen Hurts, going to that ground and pound game. I love when coaches have the nerve to do that, and it paid off big for him. Kevin Stefanski is in that list because the Browns were a dumpster fire before he showed up there, got them into the playoffs. And then Doug Peterson, Ron Rivera, Mike McCarthy, and Lovie Smith. They get in that tier because they've actually been to the mountaintop. They've actually played it, or they've actually won or coached the Super Bowl.
Ooh, I like it. Strong. All right. I think the Nick Sirianni is quite interesting. I'll go next if you want for the tier 3. I too have Frank Reich in tier 3. I have Kyle Shanahan in tier 3. I have Pete Carroll in tier 3. I have Ron Rivera in tier 3. I think Ron Rivera is a good football coach, and the only reason he's not getting more love is because the organization sucks. But he went to the playoffs right away with football team. They're competitive, and he, the mess that's around him. I like, it's amazing the job that he's doing, and I think Ron Rivera is a good football coach. But I think unless he finds his Russell Westbrook, if he had Russell Westbrook instead of Cam Newton, he'd be
LeBron James.
You said Russell Westbrook about Russell Wilson on your radio show when I was on Tuesday, and then now. And I think it's funny. I love you messing up both. One of the two names is my favorite thing.
I'm terrible with names. Russell Wilson. If he had Russell Wilson instead of Cam Newton, I think he'd have the Pete Carroll, rings, the championship ring. But I'm going to throw two other guys in there. I got Mike McCarthy and Doug Peterson in there. I mean, they both won championships, and while I don't think either one of them is going to win another one, I would probably give a better chance to Doug Peterson because I think the Jags, he has a chance to shape that organization. If he gets some wins, he can get power, which may be the worst thing for him, but hopefully can shape that thing the way he wants to shape it. But I think both those guys, they're good offensive minds. I think they're both flawed in a sense that Mike McCarthy can't win his owner over enough to really do it the way he wants to do it ever. I think the fact that he ended up taking the Cowboy job and didn't get a job where he could have more say, and the Cowboys wanted, they always want a guy that they can kind of push around, speaks to maybe he got pushed around by Aaron Rodgers, and that's why they didn't win more in Green Bay. And obviously he was on the same page with Aaron Rodgers. And I think it's important to be on the same page with your quarterback, or at least make them better and then find the next guy and be an important guy and finding the right quarterback. I mean, I know he didn't get a chance to go look for anyone with Dak Prescott, but at Aaron Rodgers, he should have got more out of Aaron Rodgers. But I do think he got the Cowboys back on track, and I think he's a competent coach. So I've got Mike McCarthy of the Cowboys, Frank Reich of the Colts, Doug Peterson of the Jags, Kyle Shanahan of the 49ers, Pete Carroll of the Seahawks, Ron Rivera of the Commanders. I will point out that every one of them has been to the Super Bowl as a head coach, except for Frank Reich, who I think is a pretty good coach and has done it without the quarterback, has had success without the quarterback, and that's why he makes the tier 3. I think these guys can win Super Bowls, and all of them have been to one, except for, like I said, Frank Reich, but they can win Super Bowls for you. Who's next?
My tier 4. This tier is not necessarily better than the next one, but it's different.
You done tier 3?
You haven't done tier 3.
Yeah, I did. That was the Dan Campbell tier.
Oh, you started it. He started it. Yeah.
Okay.
Come on.
Yeah.
All right. And so, all right. So everyone's done tier 3, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Go for it then. Tier 4.
So tier 4 is the retread group of coaches that I think are fine. McCarthy, Peterson, Rivera, Bowles, and Smith. I think Bowles and Smith are two guys who have been victims of circumstances in their career, but have had rough patches. I think Lovie Smith.
Lovie Smith. Okay.
Yeah. So Lovie Smith, I think, was great in Chicago, very good in Chicago, beating Green Bay at times, making a Super Bowl. He got fired after 10-6, and the Bears have never really been back to that area other than the 2018 season. But he also was bad in Illinois, bad in Tampa Bay, So like you wonder about like circumstances, but I'll give him the benefit of the doubt because of his time in Chicago. Todd Bowles, I think I'm excited to see what Todd Bowles can do with a functional franchise. So I'm going to put him in that list.
Okay. Jeff, you want the next crack at the tier 4 list?
Yeah, my tier 4 is retreads too, but it's not as I think different kind of retreads. I was trying to find a place to put these guys because I feel like they've all obviously been around the block as head coaches, but they've also landed in situations where they could have a lot more success than they had the first time around. So that's Todd Bowles for sure in Tampa. I think he's sitting on a team that can win a championship this year. I think he got a little bit of a bad deal in New York when they just basically got rid of all the good players who were there. And he actually had the chance to be in the playoffs with the Jets until Ryan Fitzpatrick imploded that one season. So I think he's going to do well. But again, he's just not in the class with people who have already named. Josh McDaniels was a disaster in Denver.
Oh my God, he's in this category?
Yeah, tier 4. Yeah. Retread. Yeah. So I've always respected his offensive mind. And I think the first time around in Denver, he was trying to do a Bill Belichick impression. It seems like he's had a lot of time to grow up, a lot of time to learn how to do it well the second time around. And I think he's got a good team. The Raiders are still probably the 4th best team on paper in the AFC West, but it's a pretty good makeup of guys who made the playoffs, added Devontae Adams, added some good players on defense, Chandler Jones coming over there. I think that it could be different for him. And then Dennis Allen in New Orleans, again, if Jameis Winston can actually be a solid quarterback for them, I like how they drafted. I think adding Chris Olave to that group, you get Michael Thomas back healthy. You got Trevor Penning coming in playing offensive tackle, left tackle for you. You bring in Honey Badger. You got some players there who have given, especially on defense, who have given Tom Brady and the Bucs fit. So I think they have a chance to be in the playoffs. So those are 3 guys that for me were hard to peg because they'd be lower on this list if we were just going off, what they've done as head coaches. But I think they're all in good situations and can produce.
And you've already given your tier 4, right, Eric?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So here we go. Tier 4 to me is you're doubtful. I need to see more to believe in it. I don't say that you're done. And really the one guy that I like better than anybody else is Brandon Staley, right? I think he's progressive. I like his aggressiveness. I like the fact that he's doing what he believes is right. But I've got him in this because he also he has the quarterback and he didn't get there. And he had a game against the Raiders and he couldn't get there. Like, that's a big loss. But he's the guy that I almost bumped up, but I kind of like the symmetry of the guys I had above of being in there. And maybe I should put Frank Reich down in this group as well, because I could see a scenario for, but I am a believer in Frank Reich. My tier 4, Kevin Stefanski, he's got a lot to prove. Like, getting to one playoff and getting one win against the remains of Ben Roethlisberger, I'm not impressed. And it was a mess this year. He's it might be a victim of being in Cleveland, but I'm not.
It's Baker Mayfield. He's the victim of that.
But he took Baker Mayfield to the playoffs and won a game.
Man, with a healthy arm.
Well, but that's that. I don't think Baker Mayfield's great, and he won. I'll give him that credit, but even just going to the playoffs one year, like Rich Brooks won a Coach of the Year award, right? Like 1 year is like nothing. Like you don't get credit for 1 year. Arthur Smith of the Falcons, I thought he had some moments. I'm not wild on any of these guys. Nathaniel Hackett, I'm going to take a shot because he's an offensive guy. I'm going to put him in here. Todd Bowles goes right here for me because I do like Todd Bowles, and I don't think the Jets stink should grade him down. But I haven't seen anything that makes me think, yeah, definitely going to work, right? Josh McDaniels, I'll put in there because it's his second time, so hopefully he learned something from the first time. But we'll see. The fact that the Raiders were the team that hired him speaks to the fact that I don't think any other team wanted him, and that's not a good sign. Like I said, Staley should be higher. Is the one guy I could put higher, but I need to see a little bit more. Mike McDaniel, I'm optimistic. I think I like how he's kind of out there, and I think we may find that he was the juice. Like whatever credit and failure is given to Kyle Shanahan. This guy's been with him every step of the way. So I think it's going to be interesting to see. Does he rock it and the 49ers plummet? And it turns out this was the guy doing a lot of the work for him. So I'm intrigued by that. And then Nick Sirianni. I mean, first year goes to the playoffs. There's some upside there. I could have broken this into like 2 tiers and gone, Sirianni, I'm bullish on McDaniel, and Staley and bump them above all the rest. But I don't really think any of those guys have separated enough. 1 year is not going to be enough to get it done for me. So that's my group in tier 4. Any knocks on that?
I can't take a guy that high in Mike McDaniel who hasn't coached an NFL game yet. That's the only thing I would say. I get that you're more about the future and where it's going, right. But I just feel like until you step on the field, I mean, look, I love Robert Saleh as a guy, as a personality, but they didn't do crap with the the Jets in the first year. I mean, if Mike McDaniel comes out and doesn't miss the playoffs and goes 7-10, are you going to be like, I missed that?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, listen, I am not going to. I have the ability with new information. I reserve the right to change my mind. I am not going to make this list and then sit here and watch a guy, put a guy in tier 3 and watch him win 4 games and 5 games and then try to BS you as to why I'm right. He's in tier 3. I'll be like, oh no, that guy failed me. He let me down, and no, he's bumped out. Absolutely. I am willing to say, I like the kind of goofiness of Mike McDaniel. I think he's a smart Dan Campbell, right? I think Dan Campbell is I think he's like a big dope, right? A lovable dope. Okay. He's a lovable.
I like Dan. Dan Campbell to me is like a meathead tight end, but it takes actual intelligence to play tight end in the NFL, I think.
Oh, I do too. I don't think he's an idiot. First of all, let's be clear about this. There are only 32 of these jobs. All these guys are really good, right? None of them are dimwits and suck. They all have success. I want to be clear about that. I'm going to get the 3 guys that I'm like, it's not going to work. But they are all good football coaches, right? That is let's be clear. But we're talking about the best of the best. And so we're putting them in tiers. So people have to put the big boy pants on and find out that, guess what? You're several tiers away from Bill Belichick. That's just the reality of the world. But I totally get it. And I won't scream and yell or fight or get angry about it. I just think if there's a guy, I kind of like what I hear from Mike McDaniel. I think he's going to be able to lead some people. Tier 5. And Eric, you have 7 or 6?
6.
6. Okay. Tier 5 for you, Eric.
Yeah. So this one has a bunch of coaches. I'm basically, here's where various levels of the jury being out. This is kind of in order. Sirianni, Dable, Eberflus, McDaniels, Allen, O'Connell, Hackett, Salah, McDaniel, and Arthur Smith sneaks in here. I actually did not like how Arthur Smith operated last year, but he sneaks in there because of his work with the Titans was actually pretty good.
Okay. I don't have any big digs on that. You had Sirianni in here though?
Mm-hmm. He's the top of this list.
I will still. I just to reiterate and highlight Campbell, Sirianni. But I will give you this. I think the Eagles under is a strong play this year. Do you agree with that, Eric?
Yeah, I think the Eagles beat every single bad team on their schedule last year, and they got murdered by every team that with a pulse. And the Lions were competitive with almost everybody last year.
Okay. So I'm not. I hear where you're coming from on a lot of those names. So I don't have any big rub there. Jeff.
Okay, obviously my tier 5, we're going to start differentiating. We're going to have some differences in how we actually picked the lower tier. So my tier 5 were guys who I think have promise, but have not been that impressive just yet. And Brandon Staley's on the top of that list for me because I agree with you, Soren. He should have been in the playoffs with the team he had, with the quarterback he had, and he just made too many fourth down gambles, just mismanaged too many games. The run defense was horrible. He's supposed to be a defensive-minded head coach, and the defense stunk. So a lot of knocks on him for that. Robert Saleh is on that list. I think that he will get the Jets turned around. I loved his personality. I think he's my Mike McDaniel. If you're going to love Mike McDaniel for being part of that staff, I love what Saleh brought to that staff, and he was a defensive coordinator. Just his passion, his energy. I think guys will play for him. Arthur Smith, for the reason of the Falcons sucked. They didn't have a whole lot to work with. And the fact that they were even flirting with the playoff spot late in the year speaks to what he was able to do. I was not as high on him as when he ran Tennessee's offense, but I think he was able to do some things. Like that team lost their best receiver, Calvin Ridley, in the middle of he just walked away in the middle of the season. They were relying on a rookie tight end and a wide receiver who was playing every last spot on offense in Cordarrelle Patterson. I just think what he did is a little bit underrated in Atlanta. Cliff Kingsbury, I saw somebody asked about him on this list. He finally showed up on my list. I actually had him in tier 3 when I made my first list. And the more I thought about it, it was just hard to put him in the same company as, the Frank Reichs, the Zach Taylors, the Stefanskis, the Petersons, the guys who won a championship. I just feel like he's done some good things, but the way his teams have flamed out and where he's at with his quarterback right now, and people talk about that being a big issue here, how he's coaching Kyler Murray, what kind of situations he's putting Kyler Murray in that offense now. I just think that it could really be an explosion down in Arizona with what he's been doing. So until he's able, I know he got into the playoffs last year, but until he's able to actually perform at a high level, have that team performing at a high level in December and January, can't get higher than that on my list. And then Dan Campbell. Sorry, Eric, he dropped a couple spots when we started this thing. But I agree with what Eric said. I think I was seduced by the playing hard for him factor. I do think that that's a huge part of being a successful head coach, is having guys believe in what you're doing. And I know how easy it is for players in this league to give up on you when you get into November and December and the team's going nowhere. So I give him a ton of credit for that. I thought he was Sheriff Buford T. Justice from, Smokey and the Bandit when he showed up, just as a walking punchline. A guy would just be nonstop comedy. But the emotion, the passion he had, the tears of the press conferences, I give him love for that.
I don't think Eager's old enough to catch that reference there.
That's right. Go watch Smokey and the Bandit.
Yeah.
My big thing is,
great movie.
After years and years of looking at Mike Tomlin and thinking, like, how do they do it, right? Like, because Tomlin is not a progressive guy on fourth downs. He doesn't, like, when Tomlin took over, one of the smartest things he did was give Dick LeBeau the defense. And Tomlin was a Tampa 2 guy, and LeBeau was a 3-4 old school Blitzburg guy. And and Tomlin gave him that. But Tomlin gets people to play hard. And, one of my good friends, Bruce Grakowski, played for him. And he said, look, like the kind of stuff that Tomlin did to motivate, like you look at Antonio Brown, like we didn't know Antonio Brown was a head case until he left Pittsburgh. Really, like truly knew what was the depths of that until he left Pittsburgh. And I'm not trying to put Campbell on that level, but I think the ceiling for Campbell is a guy like Tomlin, where you look at the tact and stuff like that, and you're not necessarily all that impressed, but people are willing to go to battle and put it on the line for the guy. And I think that's one way to coach football effectively.
Yeah. And by the way, Jeff, for those that are catching us on the podcast, referencing Kevin DeTrucker said, I just hopped on here. I'm hearing you guys list below average head coaches. Has anyone mentioned Cliff Kingsbury? Aaron said Staley and Kingsbury are only a couple of weeks in the season different, which I think is interesting. He also said this one, McVay and Staley are closer than you think.
I don't see that.
Not yet, but I'll give Aaron credit. That's a bold statement. Like Dan Campbell is bold. That's a bold statement. All right, my tier 5, Matt Eberflus, Lovie Smith, Dan Campbell, Kevin O'Connell. I'll say this. I was like, I really should learn more about Kevin O'Connell. So I'm like, I just don't know enough about him, but I'm not going to give everybody coming away from McVay, especially now that we're on the second and third lap around. Like at some point, this has got to run dry. Kevin O'Connell, Brian Dable. I like Brian Dable a lot as a guy. I covered him when he was the Chiefs OC back at a time when you could talk to people, and I liked him. But I don't know. Do you see head coach written on Brian Dable right now? Because I think real good offensive coordinator is what I think with Brian Dable. And I have Robert Salah. All of these guys, I reserve the right to bump them up. Matt Eberflus. I just don't know how a guy that Missouri Tiger fans wanted fired and wanted out, and we're glad when he left Mizzou, how he's going to be the guy that gets it fixed there in Chicago. And if you're a defensive coordinator, you got to show me something before I buy in, because I think it's more important to be an offensive guy and be able to connect with your quarterback. And so defensive coordinators are always working at a disadvantage. It would be really hard for me to hire a defensive coordinator. The only defensive coordinators I would hire would be guys that had track records already as a head coach. Harbaugh, Belichick, Tomlin, those guys that have proven it to me. Otherwise, I want a guy that's going to connect with my quarterback. So, I mean, hey, more power to you if any of these guys can rise up from it, but I don't see it right now. Doesn't mean that they can't be there, but I don't see it right now. Not that they're awful, but I would bet against them getting a second contract. All those guys. I bet against all of them getting a second contract. Now that brings us to tier 6. Who wants the honors on tier 6?
I'll go.
Okay.
Because these are guys that basically I have a hard time evaluating just because they haven't had the job until this year. So you're talking about Brian Daboll, Nathaniel Hackett, Kevin O'Connell, Matt Eberflus, and Mike McDaniel. And I know you just talked about how great McDaniel can be, but I think all 5 of these guys, they have things that I could see working in their favor, and they have things where I could see them combusting. And the guy with the best opportunity, obviously, is Nathaniel Hackett. He's got the best team in that group. He's got the best quarterback. He's got the best opportunity to really make a strong statement about what he's been. But it's hard for me, as you said with Brian Daboll, it's hard for me to look at a guy who does a great job running one unit and then say, okay, now he's going to be a great coach. And again, I'll use Robert Saleh. Is it Saleh or Salah? Then it's Saleh. It's still Salah now. Okay. But he's a perfect example of that, where as much as I liked him, much as I thought he was doing as a 49ers defensive coordinator, I've seen that first year with the Jets, and guys get hurt and your quarterback's not ready and you're trying to figure it out on the fly, and the team is, you're getting bashed in the media. It's a lot to handle. And so until all these guys are able to put a year together, it's hard for me to get excited about them. I think there's a lot of talent there. I love what Brian Daboll did with Josh Allen, one of the greatest coaching jobs probably in the history of coaching quarterbacks. But as a group, I just think that jury's out for right now.
Okay. Eric?
Yeah, these are 3 guys that I will consistently bet against. So guys I don't think are very good. Cliff Kingsbury, the Arizona Cardinals. Pete Carroll, Seattle Seahawks. And Matt Rule, Carolina Panthers.
Pete Carroll and Matt Rule and Kingsbury are in the same sentence.
Look, I have respect for what Carroll's done in his career. I also know, he had the USC thing. That's great. He also took a Jets team as the head coach. He was 6-5 and lost 5 straight games and got fired after 1 year for Rich Kotite. So his career has not exactly been monotonically good. But I'm not taking anything. I think he's like at his best, a Tomlin light. A culture, hacky sack. I mean, I've been in that building before. There's the book by Angela Duckworth, Grit. There's the books about mindset sitting around. I think that they're very and what he did at the beginning where he cycled through 180 transactions in the first 2 years of his coaching career. You win a playoff game with a bad Matt Hasselbeck. He could go 7-9 with Tavares Jackson. I'm not dismissing what he's done, but what he's going to be is going to be bad. And I don't think Russell Wilson's not a perfect quarterback, but Russell Wilson's a lot better than what Pete Carroll made him. Pete Carroll and Pete Carroll's philosophy and all of that with the Seahawks made him look like. I just don't like the way he runs a football team. I think Wilson was holding that thing like MacGyver by chewing gum and rubber bands, and I think it's going to look really freaking bad this year. I think Kingsbury is better than that, but not that by that much. And you're talking about a guy who, if he can beat Carroll's dumbass Seattle Seahawks in Week 18, they win the NFC West, and we don't have to watch a Rams Super Bowl. If you can beat the Detroit Lions in Detroit and not lose by 18 to Detroit, then you can win the NFC West. Like that meltdown was epic. And then Matt Rule, and I was wrong. Like I kind of held out hope for Matt Rule, and I'm out. He can't coach. Like he can't coach. That the Carolina Panthers are going to have the worst record in the NFL this year.
All right, my tier 6, and do you have a tier 7, right, Jeff? And that's what all the new guys.
That's of one person that
okay. I
was
can't
just
wait
named by Eric. But I will say before you get going, Pete Carroll deserves a little more credit for what he's done because he had an all-time great defense. He created something in the NFL that did not exist with a whole bunch of guys who were cast off and mid to late round picks, and maybe I'm like sort of waxing nostalgia here because they put the Seahawks Denver Broncos Super Bowl on the TV the other day, and I was watching. I forgot how
that was a great Super Bowl.
Like I forgot how great that team was. I mean, so it's just, to me, Pete Carroll is a lot like Dick Vermeil. Like he had a moment there where he was just through the roof with what he created with the Rams, and then he wasn't. He was a good coach, but he wasn't phenomenal. I think Pete Carroll is the same kind of guy. I think that, and Dick Vermeil is beloved. For what his career has been. I just think Carroll was probably just what he did with that group and how he won and how he changed defensive football. It didn't last, but it was pretty impressive.
I do think Pete Carroll will get better as he leaves. Like Dick Vermeil, everybody when he left the Rams everyone said it was all Mike Martz. And Dick Vermeil got better when Mike Martz didn't have success and was a mad scientist and drafting trunk candidate and all that kind of thing, left to his own devices. You're like, no, Dick Vermeil had a lot to do with it. And
Trunk candidate.
Yeah, I think Pete Carroll.
That's a good pull, Soren.
First round pick, trunk candidate with
Adam
Marshall Faulk on the roster, right? With Marshall Faulk on the roster. I think Pete Carroll will get better as he gets away from it. And I do think what he did was amazing. And I do think he deserves a little bit more credit. Like Russell Wilson didn't stink, but I also think he put a governor on him. And if he's going to go down, if the Broncos win a championship in the next 2 years and, win a couple of championships, and Pete Carroll's really going to look bad because it's Russell Wilson now in his 30s, and that's going to hurt him. My bottom tier, and I only have a tier 6, is Dennis Allen. I don't see it. I mean, I don't understand why this is going to work. Matt Rule, when he came into Arrowhead and almost beat the Chiefs and was going for it on 4th downs and converting and was running fake punts and did everything and took a crappy Carolina team and almost beat, what was that? That was a
14-2 Chiefs team.
Yeah, 14-2 AFC Championship team.
Teddy Bridgewater.
Yeah, a team that would lose to the Bucs in the Super Bowl and maybe would have beat the Bucs if they'd been healthy. And he had them on the ropes. It took everything the Chiefs had that day. I was like, okay, this guy, man, game manager, he's really good. But and maybe he is. And I think actually most of the analytics would say he's not now, that maybe he just had a magic day. But all the other stuff, he sucks. And you got to figure out the quarterback. And he's not figuring out. And then you got to marry what you do to what your quarterback can do. Right. And some of these guys that maybe haven't had great success, like Ron Rivera marries what his offense could do to Cam Newton, what his offense could do to Alex Smith when he had him with the football team. I mean, that's part of it. And Cliff Kingsbury, I know he's had some success, but they always suck at the end. And he's got a quarterback that was his choice, and he's sideways with the quarterback. And I don't know how that can be. How can you get your guy? You got anybody you wanted. You got your guy and you're sideways and about ready to blow that up. That means something is really rotten from the inside. And I think he's all show and no go. And I think that will be proven this year when the Cardinals crash extraordinarily hard this year. I think those are those three are just waiting to get fired. Allen will get a second year, but it will not work in New Orleans. It's definitely not working in Carolina and Arizona. I think maybe, I think they'll be looking for a coach next year. I think they'll recognize. Well, they just gave him an extension, didn't they? So they'll give him another year.
Yeah, they gave both of them. There are photos that Kine has.
Oh.
Of the Bidwells. I don't know where they are. I don't know what they look like, but there are photos.
Well, Jeff and I are old enough to remember that the Bidwells, that was a 4-letter word in the NFL for a long, long time. And, as toxic as it looks in Cleveland or Houston or different places, that was the Cardinals franchise. And while I do think they're in better stead with the son as opposed to Bill, well, I guess actually it's the grandson because Bill's dad originally was the owner of the Cardinals back in the Chicago days. But I do think that's going to go south with Kingsbury. All right, so that means you're done, right, Eric?
I'm done.
And I'm done. That means, Jeff, you're the only one who has a tier 7. And alone in tier 7.
That's Matt Rule. I mean, for all the reasons that have been said, he deserves his own category in this group.
But by the way, can we respect the guy's business acumen? Because that guy, for getting Temple through the window and to get Baylor through the window, somehow got the Giants and the Panthers into a bidding war for his services, right? Like, he's a smart guy as far as that's concerned.
Sweatshirts, yeah.
He also, the picking, like, Bridgewater, I think, is a good bridge quarterback, right? Watching Bridgewater and then being like, I actually have Darnold is maybe like the reason that Jeff had to carve out an entire 7th tier for him.
Yeah. And I know it's hard to know how much. He doesn't have complete power down there, right? He's got. I forget.
I know people who actually interviewed for that general manager job, and Rule got to pick the general. Rule more or less got to pick the general manager last year during the hiring cycle.
Example of a coach who thinks coaching is all that matters at this level. Who thinks the players are secondary to whatever got him over in Temple and Baylor. That just doesn't work in the pro football world.
Yeah, I think that. I mean, that's a huge thing, right? And do you think you guys, like, one of the things, and let's bring this back to the Chiefs for a sec, right? Because Andy Reid and Mike Holmgren, and by the way, his Super Bowl was on the other day, the Seattle one. One of the reasons I hold those two coaches in such high esteem, and one of the reasons I put Shanahan down in tier 2, is they don't. Matt Rule's the worst version of what Shanahan is, right? Which is, who's Shanahan's favorite quarterback? Who has he expressed love towards? It's Kirk Cousins. Shanahan's favorite quarterback is a guy that he can control, who's really good at executing what's in his brain, right? And Rule just is like a more micromanaging version of that. Guys like Andy Reid, guys like Mike Tomlin, guys like Mike Holmgren back in the day when it was Steve Young and when it was Brett Favre and et cetera. The guys that can coach while giving their stars freedom, to me, are the best coaches.
I want to highlight this because this is our buddy Adam Hill who covers the Raiders. Same thing happened with Reich, though. Got the guy he really wanted, and it got sideways quick. I mean, that's we were all much higher on Reich, and talking about the quarterback and making it fit and work with the quarterback. I mean,
doesn't Reich get more of a mulligan for people because that was McDaniel's job? And that was McDaniel's assistants. And then,
are you saying he deserves more of a mulligan, or he's charitably given more of a mulligan?
I think he gets one, in my opinion, for a couple reasons, right? Because that was McDaniel's job, right? And then he bailed because he was uncomfortable with the situation. So, like, Matt Eberflus was a defensive coordinator that Josh McDaniels was picking, right? And so Reich takes that over. He starts 1-5 in year 1. Gets to 11-5 or 10-6, goes to the playoffs, wins the playoff game, and then in the middle of the preseason of 2019, his quarterback, who's one of the best players in the entire league, quits. So then he has to have a Jacoby Brissett year, right? Like I think, and the Wentz thing, I'll give Ballard and Reich credit for this. That was Reich's guy, pounding the table for Wentz. They got rid of him. Sam Darnold's still in Carolina after everything we saw last year. At least Reich had the fortitude or whatever because they went 9-8. It wasn't like Wentz was a complete disaster. He was bad, but he wasn't Sam Darnold bad. And they just said, "Hey, let's get something for him. Let's write this one off."
I think that's a fair point. Like being able to know when it's not working and getting out from under it's a big one. I remember John Dorsey saying that about a draft pick. He cut a 6th-round fullback he had taken, and I was like, "Well, that wasn't a good pick." He's like, "Well, I didn't keep him." Hey, fair point. I'm like, and I think that is a really important trait to be able to have is know when it didn't work and get the hell away from it as fast as possible. Because there are GMs and coaches that'll just keep running the guy out there and trying to justify what they did and prove that they were right. And I agree with you. I think you can't do it at the same spot year after year after year, but that's a positive. Say, okay, this didn't work. We're going to bail on it. All right, great exercise. I love it. I always love these rankings. I'm going to get it. We'll keep track of it, and we'll check it next year. Not for like, are we right or wrong, right? Like, which we will. We'll see. Like, oh, I was too high on him or whatever. But just to
see what Dan Campbell lies.
Guys, I'll just say this: I bet enough money. If Detroit makes the playoffs, I win thousands of dollars. I will put all of those thousands into a 2 deep / red, gold, and bold get together dinner. Like you guys have to root for Detroit too, but I put my money where mouth is. The Detroit Lions are making the playoffs in 2022, and the money's going back in the podcast if we do that.
I will not have thousands on it, but I will be on the Lions.
No, I'm not saying I have 1,000 on it. I'm saying they're 4-1. So I get thousands if they do. Like, these are the bets you make.
Yes, I hear you. But I'm saying I will be on Lions over. I will have a piece of it because.
What is the Lions over?
6.5.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm going to be on them. I
mean, 2 Bears games, 2 Vikings games, 2 New York games. There are 3 off-division games: are Seattle, Carolina, and Jacksonville. They play the Commanders. They play the Eagles. Restore the roar, baby. This is a year.
Oh man, you're talking to a guy who grew up watching the Lions
with Wayne Fontes. Yeah, no. The spirit of Wayne Fontes is coming back.
Yeah,
I will wear that starter jacket that Wayne Fontes wore on the sideline if they make the playoffs.
That is fantastic. Although I can't see it also imploding. Too, because
sure, but like, look,
extra fire
again. That's why you take the 4-1 bets. If they implode, then whatever. But like, who's the 7th best team in the NFC?
2nd or 7th?
7th.
That's a toss-up right there.
Look at the standings.
You go Tampa,
teams,
LA, Green Bay, Dallas, Philly.
Probably the Saints, right?
6 or 5. Sorry. Then you're starting to talk about teams like San Francisco, Minnesota.
See, I'm not even down with Dallas. Like, I would look at the NFC right now and say the teams are the Packers, the Bucks,
Rams,
and the Rams, and that is it.
Well, the Niners should be in there. The Niners
Everybody else is in play.
I mean, maybe, but the Niners. Every single year since 2011, the Niners have either made the NFC title game or they've lost 10 or more games. The Niners are when they're good, they're hard to prepare for, and when they're bad, they're bad. And that's not a team that stays healthy most of the time.
No, I think to Eric's point, 4 other teams are going to make the playoffs, and you can be like, "Hey, I'm big on the Cowboys." Yeah, I think probably the Cowboys will be there because, like I said, I think McCarthy will. Have a good enough game plans and has enough talent that they'll do it. But I do think I do think that the NFC is pretty wide open, and that's a reason to be on the Lions. I agree. All right, guys, great work as always. So for Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network and NFL.com, Eric Eager for Pro Football Focus, PFF.com. My name is Soren Petro from Sports Radio 810 WHB, saying thank you very much for joining us here on 2D.